If you have a criminal defense law firm and you don't know certain numbers, then know this. You don't own a business, you own a job. If you want to know what some key numbers are, tune in and find out.
You are listening to the Prosper at Law podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper at Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Prosper at Law podcast. I'm Greg McCollum. Welcome back. I'm going to talk about numbers in your law firm, and there are a lot of numbers to be known, okay? But amazingly, when I've talked to lawyers and good lawyers and people that some are in my program, some are considering joining my program, and I talk to them, and I kind of forget what it was like for me years ago, because all of a sudden I see myself in them, but dial it back, say 15 years or something like that. And I was talking to a lawyer recently, and all I was trying to do was say, all right, if you're going to expand into this other market and you're going to be getting more business in, and like how much business do you think this particular campaign's going to bring in? And he had an estimate. Now, I don't know, I think that's based on, what he thinks he can do. But I think that that's maybe, kind of accurate. I don't think it's completely off base. I think he thought he could bring in, say, like another $1,000 a week doing this. And this is more traffic tickets kind of things. But the market he's going into is underserved, and he's positioned for it. And I think it'll work well. But anyway, I was just trying to say, hey, listen, let me get an idea, of what your average case value is. And your average case value is important because once you know what your average case value is, then you have an idea of what your marketing is worth. Because if your average case value is, say, $5,000, and you figure out, it costs you about $1,000 to get one of those cases, then you at least if you spend $1,000 in your marketing efforts and your average case value is $5,000, that's like a 5x return, right? Your profit, your return on investment is $4,000. So you can say that's 4x because the first X you don't get, you spend it. So in this conversation, and this guy's been practicing a long time, and I like him. He's a good lawyer, and he cares about his clients, and his clients love him, and his staff loves him. And since he's joined Prosper, he started expanding, and things are going well. He took one of the first vacations that he's taken, in decades, and so things are good. So I'm saying, hey, all right, let's just do this quick, down and dirty. It doesn't have to be complicated. Give me, what's your average case value? He says, I don't know. And then he starts doing what you don't want to do, which is say, well, I think it's probably this, because if you say, I think it's probably this, you're wrong, because that's just wrong. So I said, listen, all we have to do is figure out, just to give like a quick picture of this, snapshot, give you some idea, tell me this, how many files did you open in the year? So that year is 2025. How many files did you open from January 1st to December 31st? And then tell me that. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know how many files I opened. He doesn't know how many files he opened, okay? That's a very important number, okay? And that's just like flying blind. That's like flying a plane with no instruments, right? So then the other thing is, okay, well tell me this as part of this question. What was your gross revenue for the year from January 1st to December 31st? What was your gross revenue? And he's like, I don't know. Now, I don't know why he didn't know, but he wasn't even coming back saying, well, if I had my computer or if you give me a minute, I could look it up and tell you, okay? He didn't know. So then we can't figure out his average case value. So I don't know if his average case value is $1,200 or $5,000, all right? I don't know, and he doesn't know. So contrast that with another lawyer that I know who has a law firm that he's a partner in, and they do different practice areas, and they're spread out over different states, and they do personal injury, they do criminal defense, and they do a lot of criminal defense, and then they do family law and maybe some other things. And they have a system where they have basically these satellite lawyers where they market for them, and then they share, expenses and profits. And so each lawyer is his own little cottage who's working based on their marketing, and then they share those expenses. And in that law firm is in multiple states and has a lot of lawyers in it. And I think their revenues for that law firm, I think they're in the 8-figure range. Certainly high sevens, but maybe even 8 figures. I'm not sure. And he's talking about the difficulty they have in terms of bringing in a chief financial officer, because he wants to be able to predict, future revenue. So they're so dialed in, and they have such a good handle on their numbers that he wants to know not only this is what we made, last year, last quarter, last month. He wants to know, what are we going to make next quarter after that, and for year end. And if you're running the business correctly, you would know that, okay, because you're that dialed in. But you don't have to be that dialed in to do a better job with your criminal defense law firm. You just have to get better. And sometimes getting better means just taking some baby steps and just starting to do some things that you need to do. So what do you need to know? This is what I say you need to know, all right? And it's not because I read this in a book, okay? I have a criminal defense law firm I've had since the mid-90s, and it's been a business, at least for 7 or 8 years, where it runs like a business. And now it runs itself with some oversight from me. That doesn't mean everything's perfect. That doesn't mean I don't have problems. I've got as many problems as you have, probably more, okay? Because if I'm doing more than this lawyer is at this revenue level, then I've got bigger problems. And the lawyer who has the 8-figure firm, he's got bigger problems than I do, okay? Because I have a 7-figure firm, not an 8-figure firm. So problems and solutions are all relative. So you need to know how many qualified people are contacting your law firm within a certain time frame. And we call those PNCs, potential new clients. You need to know how many files you opened, okay? Because that's your business. They paid you, you opened a file, okay? So that's proof that you have a client based on somebody trying to hire you, all right? And that we'll get into the conversion rate. So how many potential new clients, how many files are opened, and what's your revenue? Now, you can measure this quarterly, you can measure it, semi-annually, you can measure it annually, you can measure it monthly. I prefer to measure it weekly. And the reason I like weekly is because if something is broken, I see it quickly. The other thing I can do is, and I keep a running tab on it, so I know I can just, on one sheet of paper, and I've got about 15 metrics or numbers on that sheet of paper that I get every week when I meet with my firm administrator or my bookkeeper. I can see where we're tracking. Are we ahead of last year? Because the average for last year is sitting over here, and I can quickly compare it. If I want to know the gross revenues, all I have to do is take that far right number, multiply it times 52 weeks. That's the gross revenue that I had last year. If I want to see where we're tracking, I look at the current average number because it's averaged, okay? We've got the each week in there, and they fall off as you go through the weeks. but then I can look at the running average, multiply it out times 52 weeks, and see that's projected. That's where we're headed. And if things don't change drastically, that's where the revenue is going to land. Now, this report also has expenses, weekly expenses. It has conversion rate. It has number of clients referred out. It has number of Google reviews that we obtained that week, and other things. It also has, the number of case types that we've got. So if we've got this many DUIs, that's listed. This many, say, domestic violence cases. This many, we call them, the general sessions court. This many felony cases. And then this many summary court cases, so we can see what's tracking. Is it a hot time for DUIs right now? Is domestic violence coming in? Are we getting a lot of major felonies? Because the major felonies, it's a high ticket item. Those cases bring in more money. That raises up our average case value. So PNCs, how many potential new clients hired you? How many leads did you get? And what is a lead? Okay. If you're a criminal defense law firm and people are calling in because they want you to do a real estate closing, or people are calling in because they want you to do a pro bono criminal defense case, or people are calling in because they want to get an expunge a felony that's not expungible, those really aren't leads. The leads are people who want what service you have, okay? And if they had the money, you would be willing to accept their case because they're calling and asking you to do what it is that you do, okay? If they're calling in and asking you something else, then they're not really leads. And if you're getting a lot of calls from people that are trying to get you to do something that you don't know, or that you don't do, then that tilts you toward the marketing. Because if your marketing is on target, you should be attracting the people that want what you have. They want your service. They want you to do your thing for them. They want you to defend them on a criminal case if that's what you do. Now, if you do appellate work, okay, and you don't do trial work, and everybody's calling in because they got a DUI arrest, and what you want people to do is call in because they need an appeal, okay, that's different. So are you getting your ideal client? Are you getting your ideal practice area? Are you getting what you want? So how many of those people called? Then how many files were opened that week? Now, you could do this monthly. There's nothing wrong with doing it monthly. And it may be easier to do it monthly to get it started. And once you get something started, it's easier to keep it going than to start too much at once. So how many files were opened? So if 10 people called us that week and 3 people hired us that week, then our conversion rate's 30%. If 10 people called us that week and 8 people hired us that week, then our conversion rate's 80%. And you need to know that. You need to know what your conversion rate is, because you need to know, okay, if I increase the leads because I find a new way to market my law firm, then what's that going to do for me? If I can go do this, and instead of getting, say, 10 calls per week, I can get 15 calls per week, and my conversion rate is, say, a third, that means instead of getting 3 cases, I get 5 cases. And if I get 5 cases and my average case value is $5,000, then I'm making $25,000, whereas before I was making 15. 3 cases at 5 is 15. 5 at 5 is 25. So if you increase your leads by 25, or in that situation 50%, which can be hard to do, you see that result. Conversely, if you get 10 calls per week and you convert 5 instead of 3, and your average case value is $5,000, then you go from $15,000 to $25,000. Okay, so those 2 levers. If you don't know what those are, you cannot try to manipulate those and change them and improve them. And so you also have to know, I say, how many PNCs called, how many files you open, and then what's your weekly revenue. You need to know your weekly revenue. You need to know your monthly revenue. Not guesses, not like it feels like we're busy, not like it looks like we paid the bills. If you run your law firm and you go, well, we're paying the bills, you need more than that. I'm telling you, Greg McCollum is telling you need more than that. You need data, and you need a lot of data. But just if you don't have hardly any data, this is where you can get started. So conversion rate and getting people to hire you. Now that's a whole different topic, and I've talked about that on here at some time. And even and we have a sales meeting, we have a training meeting every week, and even still, because when I'm in the office, I can hear people that work for me talking on the phone with what we call PNCs, potential new clients, and in some ways it drives me crazy because I've done training session after training session after training session on this. And then we had a sales meeting yesterday, and I asked one of my people, and she's terrific, and I said, we've been over this so many times about how I'd like for you to do this, and then when I hear you talking, you're not doing it. And I'm just curious, why is that? And so, she's from a younger generation, so I asked her if she knew what a turntable or a record player was. And apparently maybe those things are coming back. I don't know, because they did know. And a lot of my people are young. So I said, is it like this? When you answer the phone, it's like you have a record and you take the needle over and you just put it down and it just starts playing. Is that what you're doing? And she goes, yeah, I think that's it. That I've just done it this way for so long, or I had it in my mind to do it this way, that I just automatically start talking, because I tell them, I said, listen, and the other day, another person that works for me, I heard her on the phone, and I got up, and I don't have an office, but I sit in one of our conference rooms. And so I walked down the hall because I'm so triggered. I just want to, I almost started talking to the PNC myself because the person was on speaker. But at the time I got there, it would have been disruptive. It would not have made sense to the person on the phone. So I didn't say anything. She thought, the person that worked for me, she thought I was there because I needed something and I was interrupting her. And she was like, I couldn't talk to you because I was on the phone. No, I was there because I was going to try to self-correct the way that call was going. And the basic thing that I keep preaching to them is like, if you're talking, you're not converting. If you're talking, you're not converting. If the person that called us is talking about how they want to solve their problem, you're converting. Now, if the person on the phone is telling you a 45-minute rendition of every detail that happened and how they were mistreated and how awful it is, that's a different thing. That's venting. If that person's talking about how to solve their problem, then you're converting. And so, and I teach this in Prosper Law, is that, you don't tell them how great we are. Don't tell them about our bells and whistles. Don't tell them how many cases we've handled. Ask them what their issue is, ask them what their problem is, and ask them what they want, and then stop talking. And that's hard for people to do, okay? There's a lot more for this that I could go into, and I gave them a mini training session on this, and this is something that I interactively do in the mastermind groups with my lawyers, and they have not the lawyers that work for me, the lawyers that are in the coaching program, and they struggle with it too. And so, and there are instances where they go, I just don't think that will work. And then we role play it, and they look at me like we've discovered fire or something. They say, oh yeah, I can see that now. That will work. Now they still struggle to go do it. Now, with the intake team, here's the thing: if I've got it can drive me crazy that they're not doing it like me. So let's say that their conversion rate and the way they do this is 50% of me. Let's just say that I'm twice as good as them at converting people. And I don't know if that's true or not. It seems like I'm better at it. But let's just say that they can only do it 50% as well as I can. In other words, if I'm going to convert 2 people, they're only going to convert 1. The math on this is still the same, though, because if there are 3 of them that are 50% of me, that's 150% of me, which means that if I'm sick, I don't feel good, if I'm on vacation, if I'm indisposed for whatever reason because I'm having to do something else, then the 3 of them doing it, they're still producing 50% more than I could produce. And so as a lawyer perfectionist, business owner perfectionist, that's a factor that you have to learn to accept sometimes. And I'm not saying you accept bad work, but accept the fact that by delegating and using leverage, even at a lower level, you're still producing more income, more results in the end. Okay? So PNCs, how many cases you open, weekly revenue. That's what you need to do. Okay? The numbers will reduce your stress. Okay? If you're serious about building your law firm, you need to know your numbers. You need to act like a business owner, not act like an operator. If you're operating a business, you're doing all the work yourself and you're guessing. Stop guessing. Stop being an operator. Stop working just in your business all the time. Pull yourself out. Start working on some things that will actually change your direction, change your business, and help your business grow. I'm Greg McCollum, Prosper at Law. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.